Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 2016 horror film, The Darkness. The original title for this film was 6 Miranda Drive, which is, I don't really understand. The Darkness is a pretty generic title that fits this pretty generic movie, but 6 Miranda Drive, that's, that's really not a very good title. Like, you would think, like, oh, The Darkness, you could have a better title than that. Well, you could have a worse title than The Darkness, 6 Miranda Drive. Anyway, the film is directed by Greg McLean, who directed Wolf Creek, which I've heard of, but I've never actually seen. Actually, I think I saw it once a long time ago. I remember not being really that impressed with it, but I do have it on DVD, so if I ever do decide to give it a look down the road, it's there. I'm more curious to seeing his film Rogue, which is about like a giant crocodile that's going around eating people. But yeah, I'm not super familiar with his work, but his direction in this was very uninspired and flat. He also helped write the screenplay along with Shane Armstrong and S.P. Krauss. There are some elements of the script that I think are pretty good. Anything that deals with human characters, but anything that deals with the supernatural falls flat on its face. I don't know who's responsible for that, but still can't believe it took 3 writers to come up with this movie. Um, it stars Kevin Bacon, yes, Mr. Footloose himself, as Peter Taylor. You have Rhada Mitchell as Brawny Taylor, David Mazouz, I don't know if I said his last name correctly, as Michael Taylor. He was the kid in the TV show Touch. I think that's what it was called, that Kiefer Sutherland was in. And that didn't really, I don't think that lasted very long, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he did that show. Yeah, he was in the main cast. He played the mute kid in that. You have Lucy Fry plays Stephanie Taylor. So David Mazouz plays Michael Taylor, Kevin Bacon and Rhada Mitchell's young autistic son. Lucy Fry plays their older daughter. Matt Walsh is in this as Gary Carter. Really, honestly, a very nothing role for him. He's in the beginning of the movie, and that's really about it. That's all you see of him. Jennifer Morrison plays Joy Carter, who is his wife, I believe. Um, yeah, she's just barely in it as well. You have Ming-Na Wen as Wendy, Parker Mack as Andrew Carter. You have Trian-Long Smith as Sammy Levin, and you also have Paul Reiser, Burke from Aliens as Simon Richards, Kevin Bacon's boss. You also have Tara Lynn Barr as Kat, Judith McConnell as Trish, Kristen Marie Yu as Tasha, AJ Tannen as H. Quinlan. And that's pretty much it for the cast. The music is by Johnny Kilmick, completely forgettable, just like the movie itself. Cinematography is by Toby Oliver. I think Toby Oliver did a solid job with the cinematography, at least in like the first 5 minutes or so. But after that, it was just pretty bland, just like the movie. It's bland and tasteless. This movie is like the horror equivalent of oatmeal. Um, it's also edited by Sean Lahiff, who did okay, I guess. The film was only like an hour and 28 minutes. Well, it says 92 minutes, but I think it was like only like an hour and 28 minutes. Um, I don't believe it was, I believe it was just PG-13. I don't think it was rated R or anything like that. Um, it came out it came out in May and did nothing in the box office. It just crashed and burned. Well, you would say it actually made a little bit of a profit, actually. It was made for $4 million. It definitely looked like it. And it only made about 10 million. So, yeah. So I guess it made a little bit of a profit, but that's not really saying much. The film got a 5% Rotten Tomatoes, which I gotta be honest, I wouldn't really say it's that bad. I've seen worse films. The Poltergeist remake comes to mind. A lot of the other Blumhouse ghost movies come to mind. All of the Paranormal Activity films come to mind. So, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I would not say this is a good movie. It isn't. It's a pretty bad film. I can understand the negative reviews that critics gave it. See, this film it came out at the absolute wrong time. 2016 is quite possibly the worst possible time to release a ghost movie not that's not a part of the Conjuring franchise, because this and even the Conjuring 2 might suffer too, because this particular genre of horror has become so oversaturated lately. Just too many ghost stories, too many haunted house flicks, to the point where I think the bottom has already fallen out of the entire genre, and I think they just need to stop making these movies and wait until a little bit longer, like a couple years, and then bring them back again, because they're just gonna keep making every ghost movie just feel so similar and just so bland and uninteresting, because we've seen this before. There's so much deja vu when you watch a modern ghost story. And it's just how many more things can you do to this particular part of the horror genre to make it fresh and interesting? This film had a kind of interesting concept with the idea of having the Anasazi demons, Native American demons and ancient spirits, which I actually liked. I thought that was a nice touch, something a little bit different, but it doesn't do anything with it. It just really does the bare minimum here, and just has a lot of lame jump scares and just really garden variety haunting type stuff, like a faucet turning on a couple times, or stuff going bump in the night, a door opening a few times. The spirits take on the form of like different animals. So that one of them will take on the form of like a coyote or a wolf or a snake or a buffalo, but it doesn't really, when that happens, it just seems kind of ridiculous. So that isn't even scary. The film seems to be at its most horrific when it's dealing with human horror, like bulimia or alcoholism, or the inner strife between a married couple. When it tries to do anything supernatural, it's just tame, forgettable, been there, done that, boring scares, and just really lazy scares too. Like some of the laziest jump scares I've seen in a film lately were in The Darkness. Like Rhada Mitchell goes up into the attic and then music sting. Because why does she have to go in the attic? Because it's a horror film and we need to have someone go up into the creepy attic. And her autistic son is there to give her a jump scare. It's just, it's just so. Bleh. I mean, it's not like it didn't piss me off. Like, this isn't really much of a rant because it's not like a film that made me like really angry. It didn't. It didn't make me that angry. It was just forgettable. Like I said when I mentioned this movie in my last one of my last vlogs, I said, describe this world. If I was to describe this movie in one word, it would be forgettable. That's really what it is. It's just a forgettable, cheap, low budget Blumhouse ghost movie. But I would have to say it's one of the better ones from this particular company I've seen, and one of the better ghost films I've seen from Blumhouse, and really one of the better ghost stories I've seen lately. But that's not saying much, because there's just been a lot of shit. And this film is still bad. I'm not defending this movie at all. This is not a good film. It's boring. It's got a pace that's as slow as molasses. It wastes a good cast who's really delivering some great performances. In particular, Kevin Bacon and Rhada Mitchell. They all do a phenomenal job with their performances in this movie, playing these characters, and the characters are actually pretty well written and fleshed out. I just wish they had a better film, because this isn't it. This is barely even a horror film. This wouldn't even scare a toddler. It really wouldn't. This is so tame. It has no bite. And the PG-13 rating doesn't help either. So yeah, it probably won't be a very long review because there's not much to say about this film. It's only like an hour and 20 something minutes. And it feels like over 2 hours and 20 something minutes. because once you get past the opening, which actually kind of grabbed me because it's shot on location, it was a nice setting in the canyons and the desert, and it's a beautiful, gorgeous cinematography here, and it's a really wonderful setting. And you have the young autistic kid who, yeah, he kind of does have Hollywood autism. It's not really like real autism. It's like Hollywood autism where they can pick and choose what types of symptoms and type of stuff that he has. But he definitely has a learning disability. I would definitely say a film like The Babadook handled this a lot better and did more with it and did a better job. And that also came out before this. So that's another thing that makes this film feel so generic and stale. So, yeah, David Mazouz plays Michael. So he plays, and they like to call him Mikey, which used to be a nickname for me when I was a kid. And so I was autistic. I had Asperger's syndrome. I still have Asperger's syndrome. So I was like, okay, it's kind of interesting to see this kind of kid. I kind of saw some of myself and some of the way that he was behaving in this. Although he wasn't very, I don't know. I didn't see a lot of myself. Actually, I didn't see a lot of myself. A little bit, with his social awkwardness, but, he wasn't nearly as uncomfortable as I was. He seemed to be able to be somewhat function on his own. I mean, he needed to have people monitor him, but it didn't seem like he was like I was, where I could be in a public place and I'd just be so uncomfortable because I wouldn't want people to touch me, or the sounds were just too, there was just too much that just made me disorientated and completely uncomfortable. Um, I've definitely come a long way since then. But anyway, in this whole scene in the canyons is really well shot. They use the locations to their uh, to their fullest. And you have this really cool, shots, where the kid finds these stones and he sees all these creepy drawings on a cave wall. And it's like, oh, I like this. And then the film goes to the fucking suburbs, and then it becomes another wannabe poltergeist movie, and it just drags and drags, and like a dead body. You knock somebody out or you killed somebody with a hammer and then you're dragging them around, like when Leatherface hits that guy over the head with a mallet. That's kind of how this film is. It just drags as after like the first 5 minutes or so. Goes to the suburbs and then it goes downhill from there. And I would have to say I would say this is a better remake of Poltergeist than the actual Poltergeist remake is, because at least it did try to do something different here. You had an autistic kid, autistic boy, instead of, a little girl who, were basically trying to rip off Carol Ann. It was definitely not as lazy and as, in my opinion, as offensive as the Poltergeist remake was, because that was just a Xerox of Poltergeist. This had plot elements of Poltergeist, but Poltergeist is also a film that has plot elements of other movies. But this definitely does have that Poltergeist vibe, because you go into the suburbs, you have a family, a kid interacts with some spirits, some shit goes down, kid goes to the other side, parents have to rescue them, so on and so on. But instead of the kid getting lost early in the film, the kid gets taken and is in danger by the end of the movie. It also kind of reminded me in some ways of Cameron's Closet as well, which is a film that I feel is vastly superior to this, because it does so much more with this type of concept, where you have a kid who has special abilities, or might be autistic, and he finds an artifact of some sort, and he builds a connection with it and causes supernatural happenings to go on. But in Cameron's Closet, there's decapitations, it's rated R, and it's actually got some fun dream sequences as well. And it's got the benefit of having, it's just a much more dynamic film. And this is just so boring and such a slog to sit through. And the only reason why I was at all interested in the movie, and the only reason why I don't think this is like a total shit pile, or like one of the worst films of the year. But it probably would end up on the list because it's just not that good. But it's not as bad as some of the other things that I've seen this year, but it's not really what I'd call a good time either. And the thing is, it's even more frustrating to me and irritating because it's wasting a good cast. Kevin Bacon is trying as hard as he can here, and he does a good job with this character. He's not perfect, but he's not an asshole like Ethan Hawke was in Sinister. Rhada Mitchell is the same way. She's not perfect. She has her problems, but she's likable. For the most part, these characters are likable. Well, I mean, Lucy Fry isn't that likable, but I kind of figured it out later on that she's becoming kind of bitchy or after, pretty early in the film because of the darkness, so to speak. And speaking of the darkness, that aspect I like too. The Native American ancient demons who are causing the darkness to happen to this family, which the darkness is taking the bad parts of them and turning, basically turning the family against itself and tearing it apart, driving them mad. Um, I like that. I like that aspect of it. Bringing the darkness out of them and into the light and letting it take hold of everybody. And in this film, it takes hold in very human problems, so that you don't automatically think right away, oh, it's supernatural. But it's all wasted because there's just lame scares. Just really, really, just like Ouija did. PG-13, shitty PG-13 jump scares. The oven is on twice. They turned the burner on 2 times. Oh my God, I'm so scared. Same thing here. They turned the faucets on a couple times. Wow, it's so terrifying. They knock over a vase. Oh, I'm so scared. The neighbor's dog gets possessed or something and attacks the daughter. She gets like handprints on her. That's like one of the big moments is the demons or whatever just fucking finger paint on play finger paints with their face. Just like and she doesn't die. I don't think anybody dies in this movie. To be honest, yeah, nobody die. I don't think anybody dies. There's not a single casualty in this film, which is interesting. I have to admit that. That is interesting. You think somebody would die, but no, nobody dies in this. If I remember correctly, I don't think people do. Maybe the couple that was trying to, get the demons out of the house died. Actually, no, they just disappeared by the end of the movie. Like they helped and then they disappeared because the ending is so unfocused. The ending of this film is so anticlimactic and lame. And so, these mediums who the big difference is that they are, they have Native American roots and they can speak in Spanish and so on and they're using their Spanish Mexican language. It's not really Mexican but Spanish language to ward off the spirits, who all you really don't see much of them, just dark splotches. They look like ink blots, and then every now and then you might see something, but it's not much. It's really not much to make you scared or really send a chill down your spine. And then, the climax, have to put the stones back where they belong, because then that'll finally send the spirits back to, back into the stones or some shit or whatever. Because the Anasazi, this is one part I like, the Anasazi Indians who used to live in these houses that are carved in the side of these canyons, they this film basically makes up this thing that they left because they dabbled in dark witchcraft and dark spirituality type stuff, and they encountered these ancient demons, and well, things got out of control, and so they bound these demons into these stones and they hid them, and anyone that grabs these stones ends up succumbing to the darkness. These demons, take on the form of a buffalo, a crow, a snake, a coyote, and a wolf, they will bring about the end of the world, if they are let out for too long, or, so on, or whatever. Just, you need to put the stones back, basically. You know, you don't move the stones, you move the stones. So you gotta move. So the kid stole the stones, autistic kid stole the stones, it's your nav, and then and then they have to put the stones back. So the climax is there's a giant portal where he burned something in his room, and there's a giant portal there to the other side, or they don't call it the other side, they call it the third world, because we don't want to get sued by MGM. So so the kid is getting carried away by these demons. Kevin Bacon realizes that, goes in and tries to save his kid, but then he realizes the stones are there. Then he realizes, puts things together. Oh, put the stones away. So he tries to put the stones away, and then one of the demons is like, "Talk to the hand, Kevin Bacon. Talk to the hand." And then he just lightly, like, it's like these are supposed to be really strong demons, and they're like very weak. All they do is like, "Talk to the hand, Kevin Bacon." And then he like drops the stones and gets knocked back a few feet. I'm like, one of these demons watch Man of Steel? Talk to the hand. Okay. So he falls down, and then the kid goes in. The demons let the kid go. They take Kevin Bacon. I don't know where. I guess he's gonna sacrifice himself. But then the kid realizes, somebody snaps out of this trance he's in, and really realize, oh, I got to put the stones back. So he puts the stones back. The demons disappear in the thin air. They like just go whoosh, like up into like some kind of wormhole or something. Not really a wormhole, but they just disappear. Go back to where they came from. And the one big tall demon guy is like, I ain't gonna have this. I'm gonna stab Kevin Bacon. And then the kid, it leads to nothing, because the kid just puts the stone in just in time before the demon can do anything to Kevin Bacon. And then everyone lives happily ever after, because they get out of the third world and everything's fine. The demons are gone, and all of the supernatural activity stops. And I'll give the film this: there's no sequel bait ending, which I do appreciate. But yeah, it's just, that ending was just lame. It just felt like the writer ran out of time. These writers ran out of time, or they didn't have the money. I don't know what it was. It just felt like, we have a deadline. Whatever comes to your head first, put it on the page and print it, and we're done. And it shows. But that's the thing. You never feel like anyone is any sort of danger, because no one really dies. I think the grandmother like got bit by a snake, but she's in the hospital. But it's not. You don't know that she's dead, and it's just people get hurt. Mostly their daughter, but that's really about it. I'll have to say this: it was nice to see, like I said, it was nice to see Paul Reiser again, Burke. Doing what he does best, playing a douchebag. But he doesn't save the film either, because he doesn't have that much screen time. So yeah, I mean, there's some capable actors here, but they don't have anything to work with. They have basically a bunch of dry, stale bread, and that's really all they have. Um, I don't know what else to say about the movie. It's just very bland, and not really that imaginative. It wastes a potentially interesting premise, with these ancient Native American, Anasazi demons. Maybe they're not Native Americans. I could be wrong. I'm sorry if I am. There's probably some other term for them. I apologize if I got it wrong. But I'm no expert. But yeah, it's just, even the film has to play like a YouTube video like 2 or 3 times just to pad the running time. I mean, this is the type of movie we're talking about, folks. But, regardless, I really wouldn't say it's the worst film ever, but it's not very good either. In fact, when I'm thinking about it some more, originally I was going to be like 2 out of 5 stars. The more I think about it, it's definitely more of a 1.5 star flick. Because the only things I like about it are Kevin Bacon and Rhada Mitchell's performance. And, the other kid actors, they do okay, but what there has to do. And I like Paul Reiser, the little bit he was in, but he wasn't in it that much. And I like the kind of overall concept of what the supernatural is in this movie. But it's slow paced, it's boring, it's dull, it doesn't do as much with its premise as it should, it doesn't live up to the potential that it has, it wastes it at almost every turn, and yeah, it's pretty much a film that the darkness, it casts a shade over a really capable game cast, a potentially intriguing premise, and just makes it just a very bland bowl of gruel. That's just a grueling movie to sit through. I almost fell asleep more than once while trying to watch this movie. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say about the film, really. There's not much to say about The Darkness. I definitely think you'd be better off listening to The Darknesses. I believe oh, I believe in a thing called love, like an hour and a half for an hour and a half straight, or watching the music video for that long or on repeat, than watch The Darkness, because it would definitely be a lot more entertaining. That's for sure. It's too bad. I mean, there's some potential here, especially with the human characters and with the overall supernatural idea behind it. But it just is, it's wasted with just garden variety scares and just a really slow pace and just lifeless direction. And if you ask me, the suburbs thing was just a mistake. They should have had the whole film take place in the canyons. Start out like that in the beginning and have the whole film take place while they're on vacation in the canyons. I think that would have been a really cool idea. How many haunted ghost stories have you seen that deal with canyons? Like natural environments. I think that would have been really nice. And it would have fit really well and could have had a sense of adventure to it. It definitely would have made it stand out. It wouldn't just been another ghost. Here's some ghosts in some house in suburbia, which has been done a million times over by now. But what do I know? I'm not Blumhouse. I don't finance films. I don't produce them. So I'm just some guy on the internet who just talks about movies. And I've talked about this movie enough. Anyway, I don't know what else to say about The Darkness. I've said pretty much all there is to say about it. Except for rate out of 5 stars. I give it 1.5 out of 5. So I mean, I wouldn't really think it's as bad as a 5%, but I can't really argue against that. But at the same time, I think there are definitely worse films out there. I mean, that were much more miserable experiences to watch. Because at least I had Kevin Bacon and Rhada Mitchell. I mean, I kept watching the movie because I wanted to see if they would end up okay and their family would end up okay because they were well written and well acted characters, and good performances by those two, and I wanted to see how things ended up for them, and luckily it ended up fairly well, and I like that about the movie. There is a heart that this film has, and it does kind of remind me of some kind of an old school horror film at times, but there just isn't enough there for me to really say that it really rises above its shortcomings. It doesn't. It just gets stuck in the mire and it gets stuck in the muck. Anyway, thank you for watching my review of The Darkness. And yeah, it's a 1.5 star, 1.5 out of 5 star flick for me. If you like it, that's fine. Um, but yeah, I wish I liked it. I'd say I liked it more than I thought I would, but it's still a bad film. It's still a movie I have no desire ever watching again. But anyway, thank you for watching my review, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.